or the fisc mechanism, which refers to the kind of treasury of the government, both central as well as the state. So that is somewhat tried to be controlled with the various mechanism adapted by the government, either in the form of raising or reducing taxes. Number two, in the form of boosting or reducing government expenditure. Number three, in the form of going for fiscal, that is your deficit, by financing its deficit, or also there are certain instruments in terms of controlling the debt management, either it is surplus or it is deficit. So technically, these are the various instruments, as you had the instruments of monetary policy in terms of repos, reverse repos, CRR, SLR, MSF, as well as other qualitative instruments. Similarly, here fiscal policy also has certain amount of instruments. These are nothing but the fiscal power through which they try to contain any kind of economic adversities, right? So that is what technically fiscal mechanism mean. So for that matter, we have shown that in a business cycle, how do we achieve that trade-off? And the trade-off is continuously a kind of balancing mechanism between that during recessionary mechanism, how we will create a kind of measurement between the imposition of taxation and the dealing with our government expenditure. So that is what is the one kind of trade-off. Similarly, during inflationary mechanism, how do we balance the level of taxes and how do we balance the level of expenses? That is what we are trying to control rising prices during the inflation. So continuously you see a kind of trading off mechanism which happens in order to tame the various upswings and downswings, which is seen in a business cycle. So this was those various objectives which I was mentioning about as far as the fisc policy is concerned. So this is what, again, I had explained very clearly in the last video, that when you are talking about fiscal policy, this is something which results in how the money fills in, from which sources, and which are the sources to which money goes out. So whenever there is any kind of difference between these two, between the filling in and the filling out, then you achieve a sense of deficit or a surplus in your fisc mechanism. Yes, Chinmay.
Ma'am, still I'm confused because I asked you during crisis while GDP is going down, and in that situation the taxation increase in taxes, and how it has a positive impact on growing the GDP
during inflationary not inflationary, this is a recessionary situation, right? So in a recessionary situation, we are not increasing taxes. Have you seen any economy changing? Till now also, we have not raised the taxes. The tax is the same. So yes.
Ma'am, right now, whatever we are facing, that is the crisis.
Yes.
In this situation, we have also seen that there are some taxes in some of the products, like cars, automobiles, etc., and so many things. The government is raising the taxes. I'm asking from that perspective.
Yes.
Why it is that?
When you are talking about yes, that is one of the, that is what, again, a balancing of trade-off I mentioned. So the trade-off is very, very important. You can see some of the sectors having a kind of rising taxation, because automobiles they were down for a long time. Manufacturing was down for a long time. So now they are recovering. So tax is a very, very aiding mechanism in order to bring about a stabilizing factor of the pulling economy. But some of the sectors, they have not raised the taxes. They have remained the stable one. That is why the argument which you claim is, yes, some of the sectors are raising taxes, while as some of the sectors, they have not increased taxes. If you look into the direct tax structure, as far as personal income tax, as far as wealth tax, as far as property tax, they have remained constant. So the economy right now, which is facing, which we can call it as a typical, it is a K-shaped recovery. The economy is which you call it as a K-shaped recovery, not a V-shaped recovery. Why? Because half of the economy, half of the sectors, they are showing a rising trend, right? And half of the sectors like which cannot operate in a fully mode mechanism, they are going for a falling phase. So the falling and the rising phase, are they not creating a neutralizing effect on the economy? Tell me, when you look into an overall level of growth, few sectors are rising, few sectors are falling. So when you measure the total overall growth, will it not that the rising phase will be neutralized by the falling phase or will be upsetted by the falling phase? Thereby, if you look into the total tax structure, how is it? You will claim it to be increasing or it is reducing? If I look into the total overall,
It's neutral, like.
it will be neutral, no? Can you say that it is increasing? Total tax structure. So that is why when you are saying,
No.
in order to come up with an expansionary mechanism, thereby reducing taxation, if I go into micro level, I buy your point completely. In micro level arguments, you will see some sectors which you exactly mentioned as automobile or manufacturing, they are coming up with rising taxation. But some sectors, they have not. So that is why we are perceiving each of the situation when you are analyzing it, it has to be completely going into a macroeconomic expansionary policy mechanism, which we are trying to exert in order to control that. So you will see that almost right now, currently, the recovery phase is in a K shape. It is not in V shape. It is completely K shape because you will see telecoms, they are rising. Then the ITs, they are rising. Automobiles, now there has been a very interesting fact of study as far as automobiles, people are they are means in demand in order to purchase car. The demand for cars has increased, right? So that is how it has boosted up the automobile sector. And you know, when demand increases, price will also increase. And how do price increase? Price increases, tax is one of the major concern, major reason of raising tax prices. So that is how we are technically we are taking up all this together in order to put up the entire platter before you. I hope you get it.
Yes,
hello. Okay. So further moving ahead
yes,
in terms of the various sources. So I will explain in terms of a small simulating tool in order to how this work. I think that will be better in a way of explanation that where are the rupee coming in and where are they going to in terms of the various activities, in terms of various developmental and non-developmental activities which government usually carries out. So for that matter, what we try to exercise that there are typically three forms of policy actions. One is a neutral policy action where you state that, okay, at this point of I need no interventions. There are certain situations where which are needed to be done with certain auto-corrective actions, right? There are certain built-in stabilizer forces. So where you see that, as for example, I had given a situation in that case that stock market are rising for the last, falling for the last 2 weeks, right? So that was a situation which was given to you. So what, as a policymaker, what kind of intervention should you do? So in that sense, you can say that since the stock market is such a market which is affected by many other factors, so it is not that you will go for an expansionary or a contractionary mechanism to control a stock market. So stock market are self-correcting in nature, and the change is only for a matter of 2 weeks. So time period is too short. So in this case, you can go for a neutral policy mechanism where you can say that just the intervention is doing nothing. Let the economy try to self-correct itself through its mechanism. So that is where under certain situation, you can go for a neutral policy stating that you are doing nothing and the economy through its own built-in stabilizing mechanism, they will self-correct itself, right? So that is what is a neutral mechanism is. The second kind of policy mechanism, which also I have mentioned in that worksheet, is going for an expansionary policy. So expansionary means the use right now, every economy currently, whatever situation you are seeing, that is a kind of expansionary policy mechanism, because you either by exerting a dovish either monetary policy or a dovish fiscal policy, you try to bring somewhat of macroeconomic stability by going for easing or a relaxing policies. So that is what is an expansionary policy mean. And the third kind of option which is available with you is going for a contractionary mechanism. So contractionary is just the reverse. You are using this tool when the economy is fighting with high level of that is your inflation, the pressure is high, and the economy needs to control it with the help of certain tools, thereby going for stricter policies. Either it is strict monetary policy or strict fiscal policy. So that is what is a, and again, the degree of contraction is also essential to understand. You can go for contraction, but there will be either milder contractions or there will be certain severe contraction. So that is again the degree of contraction and the degree of expansion also varies from situation to situation. So that is why those 16 situations which were given to you completely, they should align to each of this risk mechanism in order to what kind of controlling powers which you have, you can use it in order to combat any of those situations. So for that matter, let me take you up in terms of how does the fisc activity goes up. This was one of the kind of fiscal deficit, how it is measured. And in 2017, till 2017, you had seen reasonably a good number of managing of its fiscal deficit. That is why we stated that between 3 to 3.5 or 3.6% of deficit is acceptable to us, right? But beyond that, if you are increasing, then that becomes a real point of problem for the economy. So here you can see different terms, fiscal deficit, revenue deficit. So what are these actually, what are these deficits and how we use the four instruments which I mentioned right now: expenditure, taxes, both direct and indirect, public debt, and deficit financing. So these are the four instruments which the fiscal power or the government tries to use in order to control any of this economic disorder. So for that matter, the government, when it comes across the various forms of deficit, let me go through the various forms of deficit, which we will do in a running worksheet through a simulating mechanism. How does it work? So now you will come across various forms of terms, right? In terms of seeing out the balancing act, like revenue deficit, capital deficit, budgetary deficit, fiscal deficit, primary deficit, and two-end deficit. The terms might be quite but seeming to be very synonymous in nature, right? If I look from the angle of a layman, they are very synonymous, but there are a huge scale of difference between all this term. So let us explain about what does this term, and I think this activity will completely clear your ideology in terms of taking up the understanding. Okay, so this is what is a fisc. This is how does it look like. Fisc I have given in crores. CFI, which is the Consolidated Fund of India. All of you please pay attention. It is really essentially required in order to have a proper understanding of how does fisc operate and what kind of deficit I was trying to explain. Through this sheet, it will be very easier on your part to understand those deficit. All of you are here? Hello? Are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We all are here, ma'am.
Okay. So here you can see that the CFI, which is the Consolidated Fund of India, which is nothing but it fills up our fisc treasury. Now, you can see two different sides of this. One is a revenue side, another is a capital side, right? So again, the revenue side has been further divided as receipt side, revenue, which you call it as revenue receipt. Receipt is a earning, and another is a expenditure, which means that from where all our spending are being done. Similarly, in the capital side, you have also the receipt side, which are the earning side of the capital, and the expenditure side, where all the spendings are being done. So for that matter, can anyone just tell me what is the difference between a revenue and a capital side? What is the difference between a revenue and a capital side? Or what kind of transactions should be included in the revenue and what kind of transactions are included in the capital side? Any idea? Revenue means what? Hello? What is revenue?
What we get from the public.
Total income.
Profit or income.
Income. Okay, that is a receipt. Similarly, capital. That is also receipt is an income, right? Then what is the difference between a revenue receipt income and a capital income?
No, capital is kind of the base. Where revenue is the capital is the base from where you start, and revenue is the after the sales and expenditure the profit you have. That means the previous year's revenue will be your this year's capital in a way.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Revenue.
revenue is collected from taxes and non-taxes. And in the case of capital, whatever the amount government collects, that's from the PSUs and loan recoveries like that.
Okay,
That doesn't include the
but
tax.
how would you technical divide it? Here I have divided it. That is why you have a sense and you are saying. But what is the basic difference, broad difference? Have you noticed it? Have you realized?
Ma'am,
it?
revenue is recurring in nature.
Very good. Very good. That is the most important difference. Yes, Shreya. Revenues are something where you will get a kind of earning or expenses which is continuous, which is recurring. Either it is collection of taxes. Have you noticed tax collection, have it ever stopped? Or it is paying of salaries, or paying of subsidies, or paying of public utility services, or the activities which are done to our health, education. Have you seen, has this stopped? Never. It is continuous, it is recurring, and the earning is without any disruption. That is what is a revenue is. On the other hand, capital they are non-recurring in nature, non-continuous, in the sense that suppose I am investing, say, worth of 10 crores in building up an economic corridor. So after the construction, it will take 2 years, 3 years time for the construction of economic corridor. So after 3 years, I will set up a toll booth from which I will have an earning. Clear? And that earning will be what? That earning will be a capital earning. That will be not a revenue earning. Bhaskar, which you mentioned, okay, you were partially correct. That amount of investment which you have done on a, say, economic corridor or on a machinery, but that has fetched you earning after certain point of time. In this case of economic corridor, that has fetched you earning after the construction, after the road is completed. You have initiated a toll booth, and that has earned the income for the government. So that is a form of capital receipt, right? So whatever activities, so with this difference, now you can come across various activities which will fit into the category of revenue side, which will be all recurring, continuous, and certain activities which will be non-recurring, which will take certain time for terms of its conversion. So that will be fitting into your capital side, right? So revenue and capital side, both of this are understood. Now, let us component it into the various forms of, first, let me look into this side, which is your receipt side. So if you look into the receipt side, there are the taxes, which is a major source of revenue from where the money comes in. So that pie chart which I was showing was the kind of inflows into the fisc, into our treasury. So direct tax includes what? Direct tax includes our income tax, our wealth tax, our property tax. So what will be the total amount of direct taxes which the government earns, right? Similarly, there are also indirect taxes which fills in our treasury in the form of GST, in the form of other duties, which are increasing the level of our receipt side, right? So this is also a part, because this is again recurring, continuous. Apart from the taxes, what you have non-tax revenues. So some of the non-tax revenue which you will see is the fines. Right now, fine is a major source of fill-ins to our, as a part of our non-tax revenue. One without mask, 1,000 fine, without belt, without driving, without any proper license, or without having a helmet, even the pillion riders. So all this kind of impositions, which has strictly been controlled by the imposition of fine. So fine is a major source of revenue, which you can call it as a non-tax revenue, which fills into our fiscal treasury. There are other sources like your S-sheets. Have you heard about S-sheets? Anyone? Any idea about S-sheets? Okay. Simply, you might have seen certain Benami property, any kind of property which do not have any legal hire. There are certain properties which do not have. Huh? So who takes control over that?
Yes, ma'am.
The government. The government takes over the controlling, either it is a piece of land, or it is a piece of building, or it is a residential palatial building, any kind of properties which do not have any form of legal hire, that is occupied by the government, and that is what is known as S-sheets. And government earns a huge amount of money through this sources of S-sheets, and this is a non-tax revenue. There are also dividends. Dividends, I hope everybody understands what are dividends. So dividends basically through various sources, that is collected through the stakeholders. The government earns dividends from various sources, that is a part of non-tax revenue. You have rental income through your properties, through your buildings. You earn royalty, government earns royalty on various sources. There are interest incomes. We have given loans to the government of Nepal, to the government of Sri Lanka, to the government of US also. So the interest which is being collected from those lendings, it is also a part of non-tax revenue. Amortization. Any idea what are amortization? Amortization is also a major amount of non-tax revenue for the government. Yes.
Decrease in the value of intangible assets.
Decrease in the value of intangible asset is not amortization. How amortization act as a, let me give you a hint again. If amortizations are very clearly laid off, you will find that it will have a very positive effect in terms of reducing our NPAs. How it is related? This is a hint. How amortization can help.
Amortization means the value of collateral exceeds from the loan amount.
Like it's paying up for debt.
Yes, Ashmita.
It's paying off a debt, like old debt. You are paying it off and you're reducing.
Yes.
Your
You
debt.
are writing off your debts, clearing of your debt. Suppose I have taken exactly which Chinmay also mentioned, the kind of collateral, it is also correct. So suppose I have taken a loan of 20 years, right? And the 20th year, taking my collateral, I have cleared off my level of debts. So if countries, those in economy, those people or those companies, those have taken loan, they have clearing it up. So what it will result in? Don't you think that amount of amortization, writing of our loans, in simple language, amortization are completely writing of our loans. So if loans are written off, don't you think that the level of NPAs will go down? Yes or no? So if the level of NPAs will go down, does the country, is it required that country should have, again, depend upon borrowing, and our scale of fiscal deficit will increase? Yes, Dhanvi? Dhanvi, what you're saying something?
No, ma'am.
So this is what, can you understand the correlation? If my amortization level are increased, then it can also it can be a very, very positive sense of decreasing NPS. And if our NPS are decreased, the level of fiscal deficit can also come down to a certain extent, isn't it? So all these things are belonging to your receipt side of our revenue, because whatever, there are also other component, but here for the sake of an working example, I have picked up certain sources. So these are known as the receipt side of our revenue, because whatever components you see, these are all continuous, these are all recurring. Come to the expenditure side. So expenditure right side, it is what is, these are the revenue expenditure, like payment of salary, it is continuous. Expenses on health, education, expense on defense, expenses on subsidies or your other transfer payments, then the social security contributions, unemployment allowances which are made by the government through the Manrega scheme, public utility services. So all these things are what? These are a part of your continuous expenses which is done. Recurring expenses which is done.
Ma'am, what is public utility services?
Public utility services means, like suppose for example your transportation, public transportation, public national parks, public music, these are all what? These are all merit goods. These are known as public utility services, because all of them, they are your national library. So all these things are what? There is a very, very minimal amount of fees which is collected. If you go to a national library, or you go to a public transportation, or for a public new museum, or for a kind of any state scenarios which are dominated by, so these collect a very, very at a minimal amount of fees. These utility services are provided, isn't it? Utility means what? Which is for the consumption of the general masses. That is what is known as utility services. So this is a continuous expenditure on a cleaning of your sewage system, drainage system. So for maintaining law and order, for maintaining other equipment services. So all these things are what? These are utility services, which again goes on. So these are the revenue expenses which are being done by the government, right? So now this is what is the revenue side, which you can see, right? So the activity which I want to look into is that, given a background, suppose it is I'm assuming that we are working, economy which I have taken, it's a growing economy, and is growing at the rate of 2 to 3% per annum, right? The indicators of those economy, like your employment rate, like your level of inflation, or the level of prices, or the exchange rate, these are the indicators. So indicators are normal, right? I'm not taking it kind of very, very devastating or very, very good in numbers, normal. So that is what is the assumption of an economy which you are leading with. And hypothetically, you are to give certain numbers to these cases, right? So by giving certain numbers, you will see what is your numbing coming it, right? After doing the small game. So your kind of analysis. So if I look into the total kind of receipt, I will get a figure over here. If after putting the numbers of expenditure, I will get a figure over here, right? So if the difference between total revenue and total expenditure is negative, or the formula which I have taken in order to measure revenue deficit is, it is the difference between receipt and expenditure. That is what is the formula in the Excel I have taken. So if my revenue receipt is greater than that of your revenue expenditure, then what you will have? You'll have a revenue surplus or a deficit.
Deficit.
If your revenue receipt, suppose revenue receipt is say 200,
Sorry, is more than the expenditure?
revenue expenditure is say 150. after calculation.
Surplus.
This kind of game you have to
Surplus.
practice.
Surplus.
So this will be what? This will be a revenue surplus, no? But if my revenue figure comes out to be say 300 and revenue expenditure comes out to be say 450. So what we will get? I'll get a deficit of how much? 150. It will automatically come because I have not included all the number. So automatically you will have this. So once you play on this worksheet, you can be able to analyze. That is why I have provided this as a gaming way, because you have to put certain figures on the basis of your understanding. Then you will come across the concept of either a revenue deficit or a revenue surplus. So now technically revenue deficit or revenue surplus is understood? Yes or no? What is a revenue deficit or a revenue surplus? Is it understood, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Rest of the class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Rishabh? Rishabh? Rishabh is disconnected.
Yes, ma'am.
Ah. What is a revenue deficit? Rishabh, what is a revenue deficit? David?
Yes,
David?
ma'am.
Yes, what is a revenue deficit?
I think, ma'am, the government's total revenue expenditure.
So when you will have a revenue deficit,
Which exceeds ma'am, we can say when there will be a loss of revenue.
loss of revenue होने से revenue deficit होगा.
When it exceeds the total revenue receipts.
Yes. So we have taken two sides in this section. Now just have a look at this Excel sheet. When my expenditure side exceeds my receipt side, you will face a revenue deficit, isn't it? That is what is a revenue deficit is. Similarly, come to this side of the Excel sheet, capital. Again, all this kind of classification which has been done on the capital side, like your receipt and the expenditure. So disinvestment of PSU. Right now, as you might be knowing, Air India, government has been trying to disinvest Air India for a quite longer time. There were many banks which were disinvested, right? So as a result of disinvestment, what we are trying to do through the disinvestment mechanism, what is being done?
The IPO has been generated for that, so that the government will earn money from.
Yes. So this is a source of earning. This is it not a source through which the government, which fills into the treasury of our government, which fills into our fisc. So disinvestment of PSU is a major source of receipt. Either it is disinvestment of bank, or it is disinvestment of Air India, or it is disinvestment of any other corporate companies. So which government will feel that they are not performing well, let me liquidate it, or let me go put it into a PPP model. That is your public-private partnership model. So through that, they try to earn the revenue, which fills under fisc. Recovery of loans. So those long-term loans, medium-term loans which are being provided. So if we are able to recover that loan, which is again a long-term period, that is also filling to our capital receipt, right? Borrowings through a capital market. So if you look, there are two kinds of borrowing. We can borrow by raising our funds. One of the question I think which Chinmay was asking, that those securities which government holds, either in the form of RBI, which is holding securities in the form of SLR, CRR. 21% of securities is remaining idle with the government, right? Isn't it? But why not then the government use this securities? Because if we use this securities, this reserves, we can lessen the amount of our fiscal deficit. Yes or no? We can reduce the amount of our borrowing. Then why not government use this kind of reserves which is there with RBI? That is what was the controversy which was going on between government and RBI when government was asking RBI to take away its excessive fund. So the thing is that the amount of reserves which is maintained in the form of CRR or SLR, that doesn't remain idle with the banks. Again, that security bank again uses that security in order to recreate assets, to create money circulation into the economy. So if you think that 18% of SLR which is remaining idle with the bank, it is not so, right? So in that sense, if government will take away those securities, don't you think that the circulation or the activity of RBI, which it does in order to multiply its fund with the help of the security, it will be negatively affected? Yes or no? So that is why borrowings can be done through capital market with the help of the GSECs, which are the government securities, through the help of bonds, through the help of equities. So through that, we are borrowing in the capital market. Along with that, we borrow from IMF, we borrow from World Bank, we borrow from independent central bank of every country, right? So this is your receipt side of our capital. Because why receipt? Because these are this will take time. These are non-recurring in nature. अगर मैं 1 साल के लिए लोन लेके आई तो after 1 year only I will be able to pay back. So these are somewhat, if it is for 10 years, then after 10 years I will be able to pay back. So these are somewhat associated with long-term nature. Disinvestment. Rato Rat, I cannot disinvest Air India. Can I? Can I? Government has been thinking it for a long 1.5 year for now, but is it able to disinvest? So all these things are requiring time. That is why they are classified under the capital side of receipts. Clear? Similarly, come to the expenditure side of capital. So the expenditure side of capital includes purchase of assets. So whenever you purchase an asset, either it is a building or it is a machinery, or you build up a kind of investment made on economic corridors, or you invest in your financial securities. So this is an expenditure. Paying back of old debt. This is an expenditure. Acquisition of asset and machineries. There are certain kind of assets which are acquired. Government acquired banks. As you know, Punjab National Bank, it was acquired by your, which bank? Indian Bank, right? So that is also a kind of acquisition, which is a kind of expenses. Investment done in share market, investment done in virtual currency market. Right now, virtual currency market has also been a very amount of thing in terms of capital expenses, right? So these all are what? These all are technically, you will look into the expenditure side of the capital. You might get questions based upon this illustration, given a situation. And if you don't know which factor comes in which side, that is why the basic understanding of a capital and a revenue, and that to capital revenue and capital expenditure are required for understanding, right? So whenever any discrepancies will emerge between the receipt side and the expenditure side, what you will call it as? Will you not call it as a capital deficit or a capital surplus? Because it is in the capital side, right? Similarly, when you had a discrepancy in the revenue side, you call it as a revenue deficit or a revenue surplus. If there is any discrepancies in the capital side, we call it as capital deficit or capital surplus, right? So now help me out in terms of filling in numbers. With the background of the case which I gave you, give me certain numbers, and this is in crores. How much should I put? How much should I assign in order to have the understanding of these two? Help me out. I need your help. I don't know anything about. I am
2,000 crores.
2,000 crores. Everyone? how should, for the background of the economy which I gave you the background that your economy is a stable growing one with a 2 to 3% per annum. The other indicators like your employment, like your inflation index, they are the exchange rate is, it's normal. It's normal. So this is what is the status of your economy. Now with this status, what should be the assignment of numbers which you want to assign and to understand this game of fiscal mechanism? Everybody, hello, give me certain numbers. Direct taxes. Direct taxes again includes income tax, wealth tax, property tax. So how much should I assign? Let me give you another kind of aiding. The GDP of, let's say the total GDP of this economy is say $2 trillion. $2 trillion is the GDP of the economy. How much? Hello, help me out. How much value should I give to tax?
No idea, man. We have never seen any kind of report.
But give me a hypothetical. Just give me an image. This is one of the hypotheticals. I'm not telling you give me exact numbers. We will refer it, cross-check it again. Indian circumstances may we will have the numbers and we will do it. But right now for the exercise, for this is just a practice which I want to take it up so that we can understand the concept of revenue deficit, revenue surplus, capital deficit, capital surplus. That is what is the basic purpose. So for that, give me certain numbers. Huh?
20,000 crores, 2,000 to 20,000. I have increased my number.
You have increased your numbers. Okay. Let us go with 2000. Let us take an hypothetical scenario. 2000 is a direct tax. Okay. Indirect. I'm going with a smaller. Indirect 5,000. You assume indirect taxes to be more. Okay. Fines.
1,500.
Test sheets.
500.
Dividends.
300.
Rent income.
300, like that.
Royalty.
400.
Interest income.
1,000.
Amortization.
2,000.
Okay. So with that, you have your total revenue. Similarly, expenditure. Why my figures are not coming? It should come. The formula got omitted or what? But how come? It should automatically come. Addition of all these three.
Formula नहीं लगा है मैम. Formula ही नहीं है वहाँ पे.
Yes, it is not showing now, but I had done it. I have done the formula and okay, I think there is some kind of, because there was a formula in terms of B7, B6 to B17 that was adding up together and the value automatically. That is what I have built up this Excel sheet in that form. Just one.
You can right now you can do it, ma'am. Equal to some.
Yes, I can, but already I have since I have done it. Let me. Okay, the same thing. It's a Again, it is done. Let me enter 2000. The present sheet is visible. Finds how much you did, Chinmay.
Yes, ma'am, you can see.
Okay. Indirect tax you have told to be 5,000. Fine.
1,000.
Sheets
700.
dividends
500.
rent income
500.
royalty
400.
interest income
1,000.
come to this side expenditure salary
1,000.
health
2,000.
defense
1,500. 1,500. Subsidy 2,000.
fiscal contribution
1,000.
public utility services
500.
okay. So after taking this values, let me analyze Chinmay's power in terms of his country's economy. So in this case, total of receipt from the revenue side is coming out to be 11,100, and the total revenue expenditure is coming to be 8,000. So that means it is a kind of
surplus.
Surplus.
So since the formula is G17 minus D17, it is showing in negative, but negative is what? Since the formula was counted between this and this, that is why it is given to be negative. But again, the kind of surplus is 3,100. That means the economy is having a surplus to the tune of 3,100, and this one you call it as a revenue surplus, right? If it would have been other way
Yes,
around, it would have been a revenue deficit. So that is what is revenue surplus or revenue deficit means. Clear? Similarly, come to the capital side. So capital side, how much disinvestment of PSU?
3,000.
3,000. Recovery of loan?
5,000.
Borrowing through capital market?
8,000.
Borrowing through IMF?
4,000.
Right, change. Then expenditure. Purchase of asset.
3,000.
Paying back of all debt.
2,000.
Acquisition of asset and machinery.
5,000.
Share market.
6,000.
So if I look into this side, what you again have in the capital side, capital receipt is 18,000 and capital expenditure is 16,000, right? So if you look at this again, this is again showing a capital surplus of 2,000, right? So you will call it as a capital surplus economy, right? So if I go by Chinmay's analysis, he is having a surplus economy. So what it can result in? This kind of handling which is done by Chinmay, what it can result in? Anyone? Both he is
It can result in inflation. Inflation.
Yes, isn't it? It can result in inflation. So again, if it can result in inflation, Chinmay has to be careful in order to be, he should have that forecasting abilities that if he is having a surplus economy, then he should have his tools ready to control that. Isn't it? So thereby, that is how the economy tries to balance and counterbalance with its expenses and its expenditure sides. It is not that ये सब calculative move है, even if it is a calculative move, but very often what you see that your expenditure sides completely surpasses depending upon an economic scenario. So that is why dynamism is what is a very, very crucial component as far as macroeconomic principles are concerned, right? So तुम्हारा total side, that is total expenditure. How do you compute total expenditure? Total expenditure will be the revenue expenditure plus capital expenditure. That will be total expenditure. Total receipt will be the revenue receipt plus the capital receipt, right? So if you take the difference between these two, what will be the budgetary scenario? So now if in this case, what is my revenue receipt? 11,100. What is my capital receipt? 18,000, right? So what is my total receipt? What is my total receipt? 11,100 plus 18,000. What is my total receipt?
29,100.
29,100.
29,100.
So now come to the expenditure. My total revenue expenditure is 8,000, right? And my total capital expenditure is 16,000. What is my total expenditure?
24,000.
24,000. Then what is the difference? Now total expenditure minus total receipt. What is the amount? 5,100?
5,100.
Yes, 5,100. Can you see here? So what is this called as? This is called as our budgetary deficit.
Budgetary.
Yes. Either budgetary deficit or surplus. So in this case, it is a budgetary surplus.
It is budgetary surplus.
In this case, because your was a surplus economy, so we have a budgetary surplus. Now you understood the three concepts, all of you. Hello, just come to your cameras. You understood the concept of revenue deficit and revenue surplus. You understood the concept of capital deficit and capital surplus. And you understood the concept of budgetary deficit and budgetary surplus. These three things are understood? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt with this three? I'm not proceeding further to the other three deficit. Very often students get confused between budgetary deficit and fiscal deficit, but they are not the same. Budgetary deficit is the difference between the total expenditure and the total revenue in our CFI. That is the budgetary deficit. But fiscal deficit is the difference between total expenditure and total revenue, excluding the borrowing amount. So in the Excel sheet, you might have noticed I have taken two borrowing amounts. One was the borrowing raised through capital market. Another was the borrowing from IMF and World Bank. So excluding that part, whatever is the difference between revenue and expenditure, that is our fiscal deficit. Why do you know? Our budgetary deficit includes the borrowing, isn't it? If I look into the budgetary deficit or budgetary surplus, that includes everything, the borrowing also. But if I segregate the borrowing part out from my universe of calculation, then that will exactly show that, okay, this is the amount which I need in order to, through borrowing, right? This is the amount which I need through borrowing in order to mitigate my deficit. And that is what is known as fiscal deficit. Is it clear? Fiscal deficit gives us an idea about what exactly is the amount of borrowings which the country require in order to mitigate the deficit. That is what is known as fiscal deficit. Clear? So I will go through in the next class in a detailed manner in terms of how do the other forms